Hello and welcome to the DCL podcast. I'm your host, Steve Creasy, inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome once again to the DCL podcast, your podcast for Disney Cruise Line history, trip reports, and general travel planning. Well, welcome to episode 8. I hope you enjoyed the last episode I did with Christy. We had a lot of fun talking about Carnival Cruise Line. In this episode, one of the things that I wanted to do when I first started this podcast was not only to talk about being on the ship and some of the experiences you have and trip reports that people have as they're traveling on the cruise line, but I also wanted to talk about the ports themselves. And in tonight's episode, we're going to talk about traveling out of the Port of Vancouver. Well, this Monday, Disney released their 2018 summer sailings. Kind of an exciting day. A lot of it looks pretty similar to last year, but there are some different changes, and I thought we'd talk about that first. And with those sailings comes Alaska, and the Wonder will once again be sailing up out of Vancouver, and so that's why I thought tonight would be a good time to talk about Vancouver. Also, in the future, I'm going to put together a quick show also about traveling out of San Diego, although I've never traveled out of San Diego on a cruise itself. I have spent many nights in San Diego, so I know the city pretty well. It's funny, actually, we were taking off the other day on our way to Orlando out of San Diego, and I was looking down and commented to the person I was working with, and I was like, it's weird how you kind of go around. For people who travel quite a bit, you kind of just get used to it, and cities that you travel to quite a bit become second homes, and San Diego is kind of that way for me. Well, before we jump into talking about Vancouver tonight, I just wanted to throw out a couple different thoughts on the itineraries that were released by Disney on Monday. They went on sale Wednesday. On Tuesday, for those of you who are Platinum Class and Gold Class, you might be able to hear my dog in the background. He seems to be stretching and making noises, so if you hear any growling, that's what's going on in the background. Anyways, back to the 2018 itineraries. Just some, I guess, general thoughts on them. The Magic, once again, is heading to Europe, and looking at the transatlantic that it is doing this year, it's going to be 13 nights, and I thought it had some interesting stops. This year, it's going south. Last year, it went up through Canada, made some stops up in, I can't remember, I was thinking it was up in Scotland where they stopped, but this year, it's going to go a little bit further south. And so it's going to stop in Ponta Delgado, which is in the Azores. I've been through the Azores back when I was in the military, and that, if you've ever had a chance to go there, is an amazing place. It's kind of out of the way, and this would be kind of a neat stop to see. They're a group of islands owned by Portugal, way off the west coast of Portugal, probably about a 2-hour flight or so from Lisbon. And they are just some amazing islands, very beautiful, very scenic, and that would be kind of a neat place to stop. And then from there, it's going to stop into 3 ports in Spain: Cadiz, Malaga, and Ibiza, and then it'll pull into Barcelona. And this year, it's going to do kind of a little bit of a flip-flop from what it has traditionally done. The Magic's going to be doing the Mediterranean first through most of June and on into the beginning of July. And talking to some friends when we were in Norway last year, they kind of were talking, and I guess I kind of have to agree that with the Magic running most of their Mediterranean stuff in July and August, that is really hot in that part of the world at that time. So this might be an idea that starting in June, it might be a little bit more comfortable for those people traveling around the Med. So it's going to be doing most of the Mediterranean sailings there at the beginning of June on into July, and from there it'll flip-flop and go into some of the Northern European sailings up to the Baltic, Norway, and all the way over to Iceland. Some neat itineraries there. Also, it's going to do, in the Mediterranean, they've got 2 one-ways, one between Rome to Barcelona, and then back from Barcelona to Rome. So most of the sailings usually leave out of Barcelona for the Mediterranean and does a round trip through the Med. So that kind of gives you an opportunity to maybe fly into Rome and travel on the Magic and all the way over to Barcelona, and then spend some days in Barcelona too. So that would be kind of a cool sailing. So on to Vancouver. Let's talk about the Wonder a little bit. The Wonder, once again, will be, as it's already been released, will be traveling in late spring through the Panama Canal up to San Diego, where they'll do a couple days sailing out of there down to Mexico, and from there it'll make its way up to Vancouver, and we'll talk about the port here in just a second. But they're doing multiple sailings up to Alaska, 5, 7, and 9-night sailings. So a lot of opportunities to get up to Alaska and see some of the sights up there. We did that. That was the first sailing that we did on Disney, and just really enjoyed that. We did a 7-night sailing out of Vancouver up to the typical sailing that it does, where it goes up to Tracy Arm and then comes back through Skagway, Juneau, Ketchikan, and back to Vancouver. And something that I just wanted to throw out to everybody as far as sailings up to Alaska, something that's happened recently is two of the other cruise lines, Norwegian and Royal Caribbean, have added some of their bigger ships, ships the size or bigger than the Dream and the Fantasy. And one thing I want to throw out there, when you book those sailings, one of the most amazing things about going up to Alaska, in my mind, was being able to sail up through the Inside Passage. And don't worry about it if you're on the Wonder, you're going to sail up through the Inside Passage, and it is amazing. And you're so close to a lot of the scenery that you can just sit on a deck, or sit, if you've got a veranda cabin, you can sit out there, watch the scenery go by, and it's pretty neat. But the larger ships that Norwegian, and I'm not talking bad about Norwegian or Royal Caribbean, they're both great cruise lines, but just something to be aware of. If you book on those larger ships, and you can go onto their website and see where they're sailing, they are too big to be sailing up through parts of the Inside Passage. So that's something to think about as you sail on those. They're going to be out on the open ocean for large portions of the southern part of the trip until you get up towards Ketchikan, Juneau, and whatnot, depending upon where they're going. So something to think about when you're looking at sailing up into Alaska. And then looking at what they've got, the Wonder stops in Vancouver in September, and they don't have anything past that. So I'm kind of wondering. Last year, they couldn't make it over to Hawaii and back because it needed to reposition to get back for the refurbishment that the Wonder just went under. So I'm kind of wondering if they might add maybe a trip or a trip out to Hawaii and back. And one of the things to think about if you're thinking about that, those trips will have to leave from Vancouver out to Hawaii and then come back to Vancouver before it comes back down the coast. And that all has to do with marine shipping laws. And I'm not sure if I'm saying that right with the marine shipping laws, but it has to do with the fact that all of Disney ships are not flagged in the United States. And that's a whole nother conversation to talk about. But because of that, they cannot go from Vancouver over to Hawaii and then come back down to San Diego. They're going to have to come back to a foreign port before they head down to San Diego. So just something to think about going forward. And that's just a lot of speculation on my part. It'd be kind of neat to see the Wonder back in Hawaii for those of you who might want to take it over there. And then on to the Caribbean. So we're doing our first Caribbean trip here next month, and I am not a total expert on the Caribbean, but kind of following the board and the Twitter chatter and everything like that. Kind of the same itineraries for the most part, going throughout the Caribbean on the Dream and the Fantasy. Two of the big ones I guess people are really excited about are their 6 5-night sailings on the Dream, where they have 2 stops at Castaway Cay. I know that that's going to be a pretty popular sailing, and those will probably book up pretty fast. And then the other one that I heard a lot of people talking about was the 11-night Southern Caribbean sailing as well. So for the most part, kind of your typical summer sailings, but those are the two I guess that stood out to me as far as ones that people were excited about. Okay, with that being said, let's jump into sailing on the Wonder out of the Port of Vancouver. Well, for those of you who've never been to Vancouver, Vancouver is in British Columbia, Canada. It's in the very southwestern part of the province, and it is approximately about 3.5 hours north of Seattle, kind of to give you some geography. I will tell you that Vancouver is probably one of the most beautiful cities I've ever been to. It is an amazing cosmopolitan city. It's got kind of an English flair to it in parts of it, but the downtown area is very modern looking. It is surrounded by 3 sides on water, and right across the water are some of the most amazing mountains that you can see, part of the coastal range up there, and it is just a very beautiful, vibrant city, very multicultural, very easy to get around, and a lot of good food for those of you who like food. A lot of good beer up there. They've got a ton of microbreweries up there that are pretty amazing, and it's just probably one of my favorite cities to go to. And the best time to be up there is when the Wonder's sailing in the June, July, and August timeframe, especially July and August. That's really when summer, July, August, and September is really when summer happens up here in the Northwest. June, it can be a little bit rainy, but without getting too much into itineraries into Alaska, it's kind of funny. It's really hit or miss going up there, but your best bet, if you do some of the research on, and once again, you're rolling the dice, but if you do some of the research on weather patterns through the state of Alaska, in all honesty, actually, some of your best bets for getting up to Alaska and it being somewhat dry is in the beginning of June, April, May, and the beginning of June. As you get into July and August, it's beautiful down in Vancouver, but it can be hit or miss sometimes up there. It can get to be pretty rainy. The one that we did, it was fairly rainy. It was nice when we went up to Tracy Arm, but all the way back south as we hit Skagway, Juneau, and Ketchikan, it was fairly rainy days. So, but that's just Alaska. That's part of the appeal of going up there as well and experiencing it. So let's talk about where the Wonder leaves. So the Wonder leaves basically right downtown Vancouver, up on the very northern part of the city, and it is known as Canada Place, and it's just a man-made pier that sticks out, and that's where all of the cruise ships leave out of Vancouver, and it's really easy to get to. So to kind of give you some perspective, probably most people are going to be flying into Vancouver, and we'll talk about Seattle here in just a little bit as an option as well. But it's about a 12-minute drive from Vancouver, and it's about 12 miles from the Vancouver airport and about 30 minutes by car. One thing I would highly recommend, and pretty much everybody recommends this, is if you are going to be flying into Vancouver or sailing, is to fly in the day prior. It's possible, and I know that a lot of people have luck doing that, but boy, I'd feel pretty nervous flying in the day of and then having to make it through traffic up to the Port of Vancouver. It's really not that bad driving up there or taking a taxi, or as we'll talk about, the SkyTrain is an option as well. But probably your best bet would be flying in the day before. YVR, or Vancouver International Airport, it's an international airport, and pretty much all major U.S. and international airlines fly into it. It's a beautiful airport, well planned out. They redid it prior to the Olympics up in Vancouver, so it's a very modern airport. It's very spacious, and probably one of my favorite airports to fly into. Getting up to a hotel then, so if you're going to fly in the day before, you're going to need a place to stay. Hotels, Airbnbs, bed and breakfast, whatnot. There's obviously many options, just like any other airport. You can rent a car. There are private car or shuttle services. And you can also take the SkyTrain, which is basically their local, like the BART in the Bay Area, the Metro or Subway in the Metro in D.C. or the Subway in New York. So it's kind of like their version of it, but it's called the SkyTrain. And it takes you right into Vancouver. SkyTrain's pretty cool. It would be a very economical way to go if that fits you. Obviously, with people when you're traveling on a cruise, you usually have a lot of bags. But believe it or not, the SkyTrain drops you off. It goes right through Vancouver, so you could jump off of it at many different spots depending upon where your hotel was. And it actually ends literally probably a 5 to 10 minute walk from the end of the SkyTrain, takes you right to Canada Place where the port is. If you are going to take the SkyTrain from the airport, roughly it takes about 7 to 20 minutes. I looked up some numbers for you, about 7 to 20 minutes on Saturday or Sunday. Most of the sailings leave on Sunday, so that's something to think about. Not sure I would do this with small children, teenagers. It's actually a pretty spacious train. When you get onto the airport, you're some of the first people onto it, so there's plenty of room to get your bags and get yourself situated. So it'd be a way to go. But if you're traveling with small kids, use your best judgment on that. I probably wouldn't be doing it. Cost-wise, it's once again the only reason why I'm really even talking about it is it's the most economical way to get up there if you want to do it. It's going to cost you somewhere between $275 to $575 Canadian. And right now, if you want to do the conversion on it, $1 gets you $1.30 Canadian. So the US dollar is pretty strong right now. It's a good time to travel outside of the country if you want to go, because it gives you a lot of good buying power. So that's kind of some different ways to get to the port itself. Once again, if you decide to drive, which is what we did since we lived down here in Oregon, we just drove all the way up there. It takes about, about 30 minutes from if you rent a car, which probably is not the most economical way to do it. But if you are driving about from the airport area, it's going to take you about 30 minutes to get to Canada Place. And once you get there, believe it or not, this is pretty cool. They've got a parking garage right underneath Canada Place. And that's what we did. You can book ahead online and reserve your spot. It costs $23 a day Canadian, and I believe that if you're going to stay there for a week, there's a reduced rate that you can do. But if you go to www.canadaplace.westpark.com, or if you just want to Google Canada Place parking, it'll take you to a link there. You can actually go on that website, and that's what we did. We booked two spots for our car and my parents' car, and so that was all set up. We drove up the day before, drove up the day of the cruise into Canada Place, parked our cars. You literally get your bags out, go up the elevator, and you're right there at the check-in area. It's that easy, and it was nice when we got back too, because we took our time getting off the boat, got our bags, took the elevator back down, and away we went, driving back home. Some hotels in the downtown area, it's expensive to park downtown, just like any major metropolitan city these days, but some of the hotels do offer park and stay packages, and you'd have to just kind of do some research on that part as well. So speaking of hotels, being a major metropolitan city, there's lots of options, and so I'm not going to really go into those. I'll tell you where we stayed. It's a little bit different, probably something that most people would want to do. If you're flying in there, like I said, there's tons of options of hotels. A lot of them do offer shuttles from the airport, so that's something that you can do. If you really want to splurge and money is no option, two hotels that are pretty amazing, and I'll add a third onto it, are the Fairmont Pacific Rim and the Pan Pacific Hotel Vancouver, and they are literally right next to Canada Place. So your rooms, if you're lucky enough, I had a friend and his family, they went on the Wonder last year up through Alaska, and they booked, I believe, the Pan Pacific Hotel, and their window looked right out over the port there. So when they went to bed that night, it was empty, and when they woke up the next morning, opened up the curtains, and there was the Wonder parked right there. They got up that, and one of the cool things I know the Pan Pacific Hotel offers, I'm not sure about the Fairmont Pacific, but the Pan Pacific offers to set up with the bell staff ahead of time. When you check out of your room, you leave your bags right by your door, or tell them that your bags are ready. They'll come up, get your bags, and they'll transfer them right over to Disney Cruise Line for you, so you don't even have to worry about them anymore. They're done, and they just show up in your room once you get onto the cruise. Kind of a cool place to stay. So once again, if money's no object. Another Fairmont, if you're familiar with the Fairmont brand, it's a luxury hotel brand up in Canada. We really enjoy staying at them when we can stay at them. And there is another Fairmont that's probably maybe about 5 or 6 blocks away that's a little bit more centrally located to downtown. But staying where you are there at one of those two hotels is pretty easy. It's pretty easy to get around to any of the places you want to go to as well. We stayed at a Hampton Inn when we did it. We showed up 2 nights before with my parents. It was probably about 30 minutes from downtown, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing that if you're not familiar with it. I'm pretty familiar with the Vancouver area, and we were looking just to save a little bit of money, so rather than staying downtown and paying the prices downtown, we stayed outside of town. And like I said, we drove up 2 nights before, had our cars, so we drove into, the day before the cruise, we drove into the city, did a little exploration on Granville Island. We'll talk about that just a little bit later. And then we also went down to the waterfront area, which is right next to Canada Place, and that's kind of a neat place to go down to. It's a big open walkway that walks along. It's a grassy area, so if you got small kids or kids, it's a great place where they can run and burn out some energy. There's bikes there that you can rent and ride along, and it's really neat because a lot of the seaplanes that fly into and out of Vancouver are right there, so you can watch them taking off and coming in. And there was a Holland America ship. I can't remember which one it was, but there's a Holland America ship that we watched sail in actually, I take that back. We didn't watch it sail in because it was already there. But we were down there, and there's a couple little restaurant places you can eat along there. There's even just Subway if you want to do that, do something a little bit cheaper. But we sat and watched it load up and then pull away on their way up to Alaska. So that's kind of a neat place to spend the day too. So that's what we did. We stayed at the Hampton, drove into the city, kind of played around a little bit the day before, drove back, and then the day of the cruise, we as I was talking about, we woke up and drove right into Canada Place, parked our cars, and away we went. It was pretty cool. All right, so let's talk about flying into Seattle. For those of you who may not want to fly into Vancouver, advantages of flying into Seattle. Oh, maybe ticket prices. You might be able to find some cheaper airfare into Seattle. If you want to visit Seattle, if you haven't been up to Seattle, it's another great city to spend a day or two visiting before you drive up to Canada. But getting up to Canada, let's talk about that because that's probably the more important part. It's about a 4-hour drive from SeaTac up to SeaTac being the Seattle Airport is known as SeaTac, and it's about a 4-hour drive from there with no traffic up into Vancouver. And one thing to know is that to do this, you're going to have to cross the Canadian border, and I can tell you in the summer it can really back up sometimes. So I would not recommend getting up and driving up to, if you're not familiar, getting up and driving up to the port the day of. So getting up early, or if you did, make sure you get yourself up early and give yourself plenty of time just in case there's backups at the border. The biggest backups tend to be Friday night or the Friday afternoon time period as people travel north up into Canada, especially in the summer. There's a lot of people spend their weekends up in Canada. There's a lot of things to do up there. And then also, kind of Sunday, late Sunday morning on into the afternoon is a time where it's going to back up as well. So if you did fly into Seattle, I would really try and give yourself maybe, get up to Vancouver the day before. And if you're flying out of Seattle, maybe think about, if you're going to book a ticket, I would definitely book it late in the afternoon, maybe early evening. If you're going to book the ticket the day you get back in from the cruise, or maybe even think about booking it one day later, just so that you don't have any problems at the border. Another option is to take Amtrak. Amtrak runs right between Seattle and Vancouver. We've taken Amtrak here from Portland to Seattle quite a bit. It's really nice. They have amazingly clean, comfortable cars. The seats are kind of airline seats. They have Wi-Fi on board, so it's a really comfortable way to travel. But once again, something to think about with Amtrak is that they don't have their own dedicated track, so there's always the possibility that a train up ahead might cause your train to slow down. So once again, I would definitely recommend doing this if it's something you're interested in, but I would also want to maybe think about giving it, getting up to Vancouver or coming back and giving yourself a day before you fly back out of Seattle. But Seattle, definitely doable. And once again, probably the main advantage I would say is just if you want to see Seattle and the possibility that maybe you could get some little bit cheaper tickets out of Seattle versus Vancouver. So going back to Vancouver just real quick, something I should have thrown out is that another option for hotels is around the Vancouver airport itself. Vancouver airport's actually in Richmond, BC, just south of the city, and there are quite a few hotels around that area as well. And that's it's kind of a neat suburb. That's where our crew hotel is, where they put us up at. And a lot of Asian families from China and the Hong Kong area have moved in there. So if you're a fan of Asian food at all, they have got some amazing restaurants all located right around that Richmond area. So kind of a neat place to explore as well. And you'd have to do the research on it. You may or may not be able to get a little bit cheaper hotel, but certainly a place that would make it convenient to get to the airport the next day if you wanted to stay there after the cruise. And once again, super easy to get up to and out of with a lot of different options, either the SkyTrain or private cars or shuttles to get up to the Port of Vancouver or Canada Place as well for where the Wonder leaves. So looking at some of the different things that you can do in Vancouver, I just thought I'd hit a couple different highlights. Once again, Vancouver is surrounded by three sides by water. It's an amazing city. There are boat tours that you can do during the day that'll take you out and around the city itself that are kind of neat to do. There's an area called False Creek, which goes along the southern part of the city, and they have these little water taxis that are kind of neat to ride on. You can get a sense of the southern part of Vancouver, and it'll take you to one of my favorite places, which is Granville Island. Granville Island's kind of a neat place. There's all kinds of little small buildings in there where a lot of local artists have their shops. They sell everything from paintings to all kinds of artwork. There's a great big huge building where they have kind of a farmer's market with all different kinds of food stands. We went there the day prior, and there's a cool little toy shop for kids that you can kind of get lost in for an hour or so with the kids. So we did that, and then we went over to the farmer's market, got some food, and then just sat outside and watched the ships go back and forth and some of the boats go back and forth as we were sitting out there. And just, it was a really beautiful day. So definitely recommend Granville Island as a possible destination if that sounds interesting to you. Also, outside of the city, there's Grouse Mountain, and that is actually, believe it or not, a small little ski resort, which looks out, it's north of the city, and it looks out over the city. So you can go over there. They've got a gondola where you can ride up and get some great views. There's hiking up there. And I believe there's a pretty cool little restaurant up there as well, too. So you can go up there and have your lunch and look out over the city and just really take in all the brilliance that is Vancouver. There's a place called the Capistrano River, and I believe it's over there as well. I've never done that, but it's got this long suspension bridge that you can walk across that goes out over the top of the Capistrano River, and I guess that's pretty scenic and kind of a neat thing to do as well. And I believe that's up near Grouse Mountain, somewhere up to the north, if that sounds something that might be interesting. Shopping-wise, right down those two hotels that I told you about, you're going to be pretty close to the shopping center. Right down there on Robson Street is one of the main areas, and then there is a Gaslamp in San Diego. And we'll talk about Gaslamp when we get to the San Diego one, but there's Gastown, which is it's a little bit more touristy area. They got some tourist shops, but a lot of good little restaurants and places along in there as well, so kind of a neat place to explore. There's also, and probably one of my favorite places to go, is Stanley Park. Stanley Park's a 1,000-acre park that it's right actually next to that waterfront area where Canada Place is. At the end of the waterfront, it runs into Stanley Park, and it is huge. It's got 17 miles of walking, jogging, and biking trails. You can rent bikes and ride through there. There is the Vancouver Aquarium in there as well, where you can see dolphins and sea otters and sharks and seals and penguins and much more. They do all kinds of shows with them. Within the park as well, we did this with our kids when they were really little. There's the Stanley Park train. It's kind of a small, narrow gauge train that runs, I think maybe 20 minutes at the most, 15-minute, I think, little loop or so through the trees and everything. And the kids just had a blast riding that. So that's something possible to do. There's all kinds of totem poles throughout the park and little garden areas to explore, and it's just kind of a neat place to see and experience. If money's no object, something that would be a fun thing to do as well is those seaplanes that are taken off out there in the waterfront. They kind of go all throughout the islands that are right off of Vancouver, and one of the places it goes to, which is just an amazing place, is Victoria, and that's over on Vancouver Island, which is separate. It's a separate huge island that you will actually sail right next to as you head up to Alaska on the Wonder on your cruise. And on the very southern tip of it, eastern tip, is the city of Victoria. It's very British kind of in flavor, but it's a great little place to kind of wander around for the day. They have a very famous hotel there called the Empress Hotel, and use your judgment with your family, but if high tea is something that interests you, that's probably one of the most famous places out here on the West Coast to do tea, is at the Empress Hotel. They also have, and you could catch shuttles pretty easily and probably just book it through whatever the seaplane company you used, out to Bouchard Gardens, and that's a really amazing place to go and see as well. It's a huge garden area, or it's a huge garden that they have many different areas that focus on plants from the Northwest to areas from all around the world. So that's kind of a neat side trip that you could do, and the scenery on the seaplane trip over and back would be pretty amazing. I think the flight would be about maybe 15-20 minutes or so. So kind of a neat excursion that you could maybe do. looking at DCL, they always offer a port adventure as you come back in at a lot of these places. When we were in Norway, we came back in through Dover, and they offered kind of a couple different options in the Dover area after getting off the ship. And they do the same thing here as well. And to be honest, it's kind of they kind of take you on a little bit of a highlight of Vancouver. Looks like it takes about they take you up to through Gastown, as I talked about. They take you over to that Capilano Suspension Park, and then they also take you over to Grouse Mountain, I believe, so that you get some views from up there and then back into the city. So something to think about if you don't do this ahead of time or don't get to explore Canada or Vancouver ahead of time and you want to do it through DCL. They do offer kind of a short excursion on your last day as you get off the ship. It's about 3.5 to 4 hours. It looks like kind of sightseeing stuff. So overall, Vancouver, very amazing city. Once again, one of my favorite cities to fly into and just experience. Is a totally vibrant downtown. There's water and mountains all around. It's and especially walking along those paths or being at Stanley Park, there's something going on all the time. And it's very, the people in Canada, if you've never been up there, some of the most friendly people I've ever experienced. I love, love, love Canada. So if you get a chance or are getting a chance to go up to On the Wonder in Alaska this year, man, have a great trip. It's going to be a trip of a lifetime. And for those of you thinking about 2018, I'd highly recommend it. It's probably... It was definitely a bucket list cruise for us to do. We were lucky to do it the first time, and it's something that at some point my wife and I hope to go back to and do again. Well, I hope you enjoyed this little quick overall view of traveling out of Vancouver and talking about the 2018 itineraries. If you're shopping for a 2018 itinerary or something sooner, I wish you the best of luck in picking out what your next adventure is going to be. The next port I hope to go over is going to be San Diego, and probably get that up here in the next month or two. And also talking to Christy, I'm going to bring her back on. She's had some experience in Europe, and we've sailed out of Dover with Disney, and then we also have sailed out of Venice, with Norwegian. Right now, Disney doesn't go out of Venice. Unfortunately, that would be kind of an amazing port for them to do that, because that's a great city to stop and start and stop off at. Maybe sometime in the future that'll be in their itineraries. But I'm going to bring Christy back on, and we are going to talk about European ports as well. So once again, I hope you enjoyed the show today. Thank you for listening as always. And if you want to come on the show and talk about your experiences on DCL, I would love to do that with you. You can reach out to me on Twitter at DCL Podcast, and also on Facebook, DCL Podcast. So until next time, if you're going to be sailing sometime in the near future, I want to wish you safe travels and fair winds at your back. We'll talk to you next time. Thanks for listening.